Hey guys, this is going to be another wire mod tutorial. Um, I was sitting here thinking, well, I want to make another tutorial, but I don't know what to do. And it dawned on me, I should do the exact same tutorial, basically, what I show everyone when they first learning wire. Um, not the very first thing I should say, this is the first practical thing. When I'm teaching people how to use wire, I generally give them this task of controlling this vehicle, but not being in it. And for a lot of people that are sitting here thinking, "It's like, how would you control it without being in it?" Well, wire has quite a few useful things, and one of the more useful things for this situation is called vehicle controller. So we're going to grab that. I'm going to place this on here somewhere. Well, let's just throw it right here. And we're going to link it. If you watch my other tutorial, the other wire tutorial, you'll know how to link. You just right click, and it'll link the two. Okay? So what happens is when you're in here doing things, your computer is sending commands, through your keyboard and whatnot, to tell the script that runs this vehicle what to do. So when you press W while you're in there, the script knows, well, the player wants to drive forward. So it tells everything to start moving forward. Well, wire can do the same thing. Wire can say, hey, this player wants you to move forward. It's essentially saying you're pressing W. But that means you can do it through the wire's input-output system versus actually being in the vehicle. So we're going to do that. Easiest way for me to show you, I'm actually just going to go ahead and grab a little control panel. Okay, and we're going to set up all the different reactions and things for this car on this control panel using just buttons, simple buttons, and then we'll get a little more complicated after that. Okay, so we're going to go down to button. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get one to turn on the vehicle. So that's all it is. It's just a simple, I'm just going to use the key because that's brilliant, and I'm turning it on. And then on value 1, off value 0. I'm going to slap that there. Okay. Let's just go ahead and wire this as we go. So I'm going to look at my pod control, or my vehicle controller that I set here. Or actually, well, yeah. And then I'm going to go down. So we got throttle, steering, handbrake, engine lock. I'm going to go down to engine. I'm going to make sure that my lines are invisible because having a bunch of wires going everywhere is going to be a pain. I'm going to wire engine. Get my key. And what that does is just like when you get into the vehicle, it automatically turns the vehicle on. So when I turn this key, it'll turn the vehicle on, like I'm in the vehicle. If you don't do this step first, if you don't turn on the vehicle and you try doing something else to it, nothing will happen because the vehicle is not technically on yet. Okay. So once we've got the vehicle started, well, it's not really doing much because it's just on. It's not doing anything. So next thing let's do, make it do something. So let's grab, if I remember what the arrows are, yep. And we're going to not have this toggled. We're going to do, I don't know what it is, but this key, like look, I'm way over here, pressing E. Hey, it still turns on enough. Yeah, anyway. Let's just do a simple like arrow keys kind of situation. I'm going to leave it not toggle in the same settings on each one. Okay. So that's going to be W, A, S, and D. Because, the buttons don't have labels W, A, S, and D. So we'll just do arrows. It works. Alright. Well, if we look at the vehicle controller, we have throttle, steering, and handbrake. Lock, we'll just lock it so no one can get in. But throttle, steering, and handbrake, those are all just one input. But we technically have two inputs for throttle and steering. there's forward and backward, left and right. So how does that work? Well, if you watch the first tutorial, you'll understand that gates are a thing, and gates just manipulate information in some way, shape, or form. Well, usually. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just monitor it or whatever. Anyway, so we're going to go to arithmetic. And let's see, actually, let me think. Yep, we need add gates. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to combine these two inputs, or these two inputs, into one input to then send to the vehicle controller. Because as I said, the vehicle controller only takes one input per throttle and steering. Okay? So this add gate will make that a little easier. I'm going to throw one down here, and one over here. And again, I orient my chips in simple patterns to remember what they do. So this one's right underneath up and down, so that obviously is what that's for. And that one's off to the side of the left and right, so that's what that's for. Okay? Get my wire. I'm going to set the wire back up so I can actually see it. And you can see it. And so we all understand what we're doing here. And I'm going to go ahead and start wiring this up. So I'm just going to wire the A to there, B to there. Okay. So A, B, pretty simple. And then A to that one, B to that one. Okay. B, A. Pretty simple. Okay. All we have to do is wire the appropriate ones up. So throttle, it's obviously going to go to the forward and the backward one. So I click. Oh, whoops. I forgot to set the, now we got that whole string, you know, across the map thing again. Let's redo that. Throttle. Here. So wire it to the add gate. Steering. Here. Okay. Now, what's going to happen is this is actually not going to work. I purposely did this so I can demonstrate why it doesn't work. Okay. So we're going to turn it on. We're going to go forward. Oh, it worked. Sweet. Okay. But what happens when we go backward? Oh, it goes forward. That's weird. Well, what happens if we turn right? Oh, it turns right. What happens if we turn left? Oh, it still turns right. So if you haven't caught on to what's going on here yet, let me explain. The way that the vehicle controller works is because there's only one input for each one of these settings, but there's two ways you can manipulate it. The way you have to get that to work is for throttle, we have 1 and 1. Okay, but how is this going to understand what the difference between 1 and 1 is? It doesn't. It's just, that's the same number. So 1 obviously means forward. What means backward? -1. So if we set our backward button to -1, there it goes. See? And that's the same with the left. So 1 is forward, -1 is backward. 1 is right, -1 is left. Okay? So we'll set that one, and now we can turn left. Alright, there we go. A remote controlled car. Pretty sweet, right? But, I mean, what happens if we do this? We go, we turn, you know, and then we start turning. Wait, no, come back. You see the dilemma there is buttons work, but they're a little too simple. When you have a car driving off the middle of nowhere, you want to keep an eye on it. There are ways you can do that with just simple, you know, Garry's Mod stuff, like if you grab the camera, right click it, and then watch the camera. but then you can't really see what you're clicking here. You know what I mean? So the camera will stay paid attention to what's going on, but you know, and you just can't really see what you're doing. And also, the problem with this is you can't press more than one button at a time. So you could either go backward, or you can turn left, or you can turn right, or you can go forward. Okay? The way this normally works, if we think about it, is you're pressing buttons on your keyboard, and you can press more than one at a time. So, this is where I'm going to introduce numpad inputs. I showed you outputs in another tutorial, if you're going in order, obviously. But in this one, a numpad input does the exact opposite of the output. Obviously, input, output. But the output, when you gave it a number, it would simulate you pressing a button on your keyboard. So, like if I had this one wired up to a button or something, it would simulate me pressing numpad 6 on my keyboard. So if I had something, you know, hooked up to numpad 6 on my keyboard through regular Garry's Mod settings, it would activate it. But if we do numpad input, it's the other way around. If I hit this key, so say we do, I don't know, arrow up, it'll send an output out, so value on of 1, or whatever we set this to. So I think you're about to, you know, make this connection here of what I'm doing here. We'll just do the exact same thing here, but with this. So let's go ahead and remove these. And just do the exact same thing. So arrow up, arrow down, and remember we're going to set this to -1. Okay, and I'm going to keep the same orientation so it's easier to understand what I'm doing. Left arrow, keep it at -1. Right arrow, keep it at 1. Okay, I wire it up. Okay. Oh, I didn't even. I'm a goof. And, you know, most of the time I don't have wires visible, but I'm just doing it for you just so you can see what I'm doing. Make it a little bit more visually appealing for you. And then B. So A and B. Then do this one. There we go. Okay. So now, if this is on, yep, it is. I'm using my keyboard. Woo! Driving it around. And it's a little hard to use my keyboard and WSD and your mouse at the same time, so. But yeah, there you go. Now if we just do one simple little Garry's Mod trick, we can make this actually really quite easy. Same with the camera. I'm going to come up here. Set it about right there. And get the weld. Waboosh, waboosh. Smack that button. There we go. I am driving a Jeep without being in the Jeep. So that's it. That's the simple thing. Oh, you know what? Never mind. I forgot one huge thing that I usually teach people. So what we've been dealing with is just simple, you know, 1, 0, -1. Okay. I'm going to introduce a little bit different of a thing. It's called a speedometer. Okay. Let's remove this. Oh wait, I didn't want to remove that. Well, shoot. I'll just add it back in again. I'm going to turn this off so it's not moving. Camera. Boop. Weld. Boop. Boop. Alright. So, what we're going to do is we're going to add a speedometer to this thing. And that sounds kind of weird, and it might seem like it would be kind of daunting, because how do you do that? Well, Wire actually has a speedometer built in. It's under detection, speedometer. So it's actually pretty easy. All you have to do is just slap it on somewhere, into whatever prop that is you want to measure the speed of. You saw this in one of in the introduction if you watched that. of wire. So yeah, you just have a speedometer on there. Then if we get visuals, screen, not text screen, just regular screen. Let's do speed. Move this up. Ooh, that is not even... Okay. That looks good. And we'll weld it. Weld. Okay. Go back to our wire. We're going to get our screen. And if you remember, or if you haven't seen what a screen does, all the screen does is it shows the numerical value of anything that is wired to. So if I wired this to, say, one of these, oops, wire. Every time I press up, it turns on and then off when I let go. Super simple. But if we wire this to our speedometer, if you notice, there's 3 different outputs. Out is just simple Garry's Mod units, then miles per hour and kilometers per hour. We're going to go with miles per hour because I live in America and we're goofballs. Okay. That is something I didn't think would be a problem. One of the settings we're going to actually change in here is we're going to floor the screen's value. Because if you look at it, it's giving us a ridiculously annoying number. So if we do that, what floor does is it's like rounding, except floor means to the lowest number. So if it's like 1.8, it'll just make it 1 instead of 2. So like I said, it's just a type of rounding. Anyway, so now if we unfreeze everything, I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, actually, as I move it around, the speedometer moves. So if I come back here and I turn it back on, get in our view, we can drive around at a whopping 26 miles per hour, 27. So there you go. One thing I thought of, and people have asked me before, how do you wire up the turbo? No idea. Just throw a thruster on the back. So there you go. That's how you make a wireless Jeep. And maybe we'll get you thinking, get your gears turning. You start thinking of other wire things to do. You can, maybe combine this tutorial with my previous tutorial on how to make a wire car. And you can make a wirelessly drivable wire car or something. I don't know. Hopefully you learned lit and have fun.